Sarah sighed and looked at the clock again. 11:45 p.m. She didn't want to go out at this hour, but Max, her 3-year-old golden retriever, was nervously pacing near the door, small whines indicating he really needed to go to the bathroom. This was the first time Max had broken their usual evening walk, usually at 9 p.m. But today, Sarah had to work late to finish an important project and forgot to go for a walk. Bye, Max. Okay, Sarah whispered, stroking Max's silky blonde fur. We'll go quickly. Max's claws tapped lightly on the wooden floor as he jumped happily. Sarah put on her familiar denim jacket, put on headphones, and turned on her favorite podcast to listen to while walking. Her neighborhood in Boston is usually quite safe, but at this hour, the street was eerily quiet. The streetlights cast pale yellow streaks of light onto the sidewalk, creating long, haunting shadows. The October night air was bitterly cold, and Sarah could see her breath in tiny clouds in the air. Falling red maple leaves covered the sidewalk, making dry rustling sounds under their feet. Max led the way, taking long, confident strides, while Sarah tried to focus on the deep voice of the podcast host talking about some mysterious case from the 19th century. They had been walking for about 5 minutes when Max stopped at a familiar corner of a small park. Sarah waited patiently, looking around while Max did his work. Suddenly, her ears picked up a strange sound. The sound of footsteps grinding on dry leaves, not coming from their direction. Max heard it too. Its ears stood up straight, its entire huge body tensed like a string. Sarah felt her heart beat faster. She took off her headphones and listened. "Hey, girl," a deep male voice said from behind, causing Sarah to turn around in surprise. 3 men were walking towards her. The distance between them was only about 10 feet. Under the dim streetlights, Sarah could see that they were all wearing dark hoodies with hoods covering their heads. The one who spoke the loudest among the 3 had a small tattoo on his neck, shining under the light. "A beautiful woman like you shouldn't be alone at this hour," the man continued, his voice artificially sweet. "Let us take you home, okay?" Sarah felt her throat dry and bitter. Max was standing next to her, the hairs on the back of his neck standing up, a low growl coming from his throat. "No, thank you," Sarah said, trying to keep her voice calm but firm. "I live nearby and have my dog with me." The 3 men exchanged glances, then began to move to surround Sarah and Max. People with tattoos go one step further. "Oh, don't worry about your pet dog," he smirked. "We know how to handle dogs." Sarah felt fear rising in her chest, but at the same time, a burst of anger. She tightened her grip on Max's leash, ready to run away if given the chance. "Stop!" she shouted, her voice echoing in the dead of night. "I will call the police!" But the attackers didn't seem to mind. They continued to get closer, and Sarah could smell the strong scent of alcohol coming from them. She took a step back, feeling the warmth of Max's body trembling with tension. Suddenly, the tattooed man rushed forward, his hand reaching out to grab Sarah's arm. Everything happened in an instant. Max, the always gentle and friendly dog, suddenly turns into a terrifying fighting machine. It shot up like a golden arrow, its white teeth flashing under the streetlights. Its barks are no longer the usual happy sounds, but the roars of a wild animal protecting its territory. Max's jaw locked onto the tattooed man's outstretched arm. His scream of pain tore through the stillness of the late night. Blood shot out from the bite wound, staining the sleeve of his black hoodie red. "You crazy bitch!" the tattooed man screamed, struggling to get out of Max's jaws, but the more he struggled, the tighter Max's jaw became. The remaining two men stood frozen for a few seconds, stunned by what happened so quickly. Then one guy pulled out a small knife from his pocket, the blade glistening under the streetlight. "I'll kill you, you son of a bitch!" he roared, rushing towards Max. Sarah felt like an electric current ran through her. Without hesitation, she released her grip on Max's leash and rushed towards the knife-wielding man. All the self-defense lessons she had learned suddenly came rushing back to her mind. She turned around, avoided the first knife blow, then used all her strength to kick him straight in the knee. A dry, cracking sound rang out, followed by the painful scream of the knife-wielding man. He collapsed, the knife clinking on the sidewalk. The other guy, perhaps finally realizing the situation was not good, turned around and ran away. The sound of his shoes clacking on the sidewalk grew farther and farther away. The guy with the tattoo, still being held tightly by Max, started crying. "Please, call him back! I'm sorry!" Sarah, still shaking from adrenaline, ordered, "Max, let go!" Max immediately relaxed his jaw, backing away from Sarah but still maintaining a ready-to-attack posture, the growl still emanating from his throat. The guy with the tattoo staggered back, holding his bleeding arm. The guy who was kicked in the knee tried to get up, but obviously couldn't. "You have two choices," Sarah said, her voice cold as ice. "Either sit here and wait for the police to come, or try to run and let Max chase you. And I assure you, he runs much faster." As if to emphasize Sarah's words, Max barked loudly, startling both thugs. Sarah pulled out her phone and videotaped the entire scene in front of her. The two injured criminals, the knife on the ground, the blood on the tattooed guy's sleeve. Then she called 911. "Hello, I'm at the corner of Cedar and Maple Streets. Two attackers are injured and lying on the ground. The third one ran away. I need the police and an ambulance." While waiting for the police to arrive, Sarah kept her phone recording. Max was still in a ready position to attack. She could hear police sirens in the distance, getting closer and closer. When the red and blue lights finally appeared at the beginning of the street, Sarah let tears roll down her cheeks. She knelt down and hugged Max tightly, feeling his strong heartbeat through the thick fur. "You're a hero," she whispered into Max's ear. "A true hero." Max gently licked Sarah's cheek, as if to wipe away the tears. Its big brown eyes shone with a strange light, no longer the ferocity of a few minutes ago, but back to the warm, loyal gaze that Sarah was familiar with. Loud sirens, screeching car brakes, police radio. All those sounds seemed to disappear in this moment. Sarah only felt the warmth of Max's body, the familiar smell of dog fur, and a feeling of absolute safety that she had never experienced. As the police officers approached, Sarah stood up, still holding on to Max's leash. She knew this night was going to be long. There would be many questions to answer, many papers to fill out. But that's not important. The important thing is that she is still alive, and next to her is her most loyal friend, the true hero of tonight. The police car's lights illuminated the entire area in a brilliant red and blue color. Sarah looked at the patrol cars parked around her, feeling a chill run down her spine. Things were starting to feel more real. She had just experienced a real attack, and without Max. A young female police officer approached them, looking cautiously at Max. Sarah quickly said, "Max is very gentle. He just protects me." "I understand," the female police officer nodded, her voice gentle. "I'm Lieutenant Rodriguez. Can you tell me what happened?" Sarah began narrating the story, trying not to miss any details. Meanwhile, medical staff are caring for the two attackers. The guy who was bitten by Max needed a few stitches. and the other guy appeared to have a torn knee ligament. "You're lucky to have Max," Lieutenant Rodriguez said when Sarah finished the story. "Not all dogs have such strong protective instincts." Sarah nodded, feeling a surge of pride in her chest. "Max is the best thing that ever happened to me," she said, her voice choking up. "I adopted him from a rescue shelter 3 years ago. They said he was abandoned on the side of the road. I never thought." Sarah's voice trailed off. Memories of the first day I met Max came back. A skinny, scared puppy in the corner of the cage, but still trying to wag his tail every time someone passed by. Sarah spent hours sitting outside the barn, waiting patiently until Max trusted her enough to come closer. And when it finally let her touch, Sarah knew immediately that they were destined to meet. "We'll need a detailed statement from you," Lieutenant Rodriguez said, snapping Sarah back to reality. "And maybe you should go get checked out at the hospital." "I'm fine," Sarah affirmed. "I just want to go home to Max." After nearly 2 hours of working with the police, Sarah was finally allowed to leave. She refused the officer's offer to take her home, choosing to walk home at night with Max. This time, no headphones, no podcasts. There was only the sound of the two friends' footsteps on the sidewalk and the sound of the autumn wind rustling through the trees. When she got back to the apartment, Sarah locked the door carefully, then sat down on the floor, leaning her back against the wall. Max lay down next to her, placing his head on her lap. In the soft glow of the living room lamp, Sarah could see a few dried bloodstains on Max's golden fur. "Tomorrow we have to give you a good bath," she whispered, stroking Max's head. "And then we'll go to the pet store. You deserve lots of delicious food and new toys." Max let out a soft groan of satisfaction, his dreamy brown eyes looking at Sarah lovingly. She bent down and kissed his forehead. "You know," Sarah said, her voice thoughtful, "people often say that humans save abandoned dogs, but sometimes it's the dogs that save us." That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She lay on the bed, listening to the steady breathing of Max lying at her feet. Images of the attack kept flashing in her mind. The faces of the attackers, the glint of the knife, Max's roar. But strangely, she didn't feel scared anymore. Instead, there is a feeling of deep gratitude and boundless love for his four-legged friend. Sarah knew that after tonight, their lives would never be the same. She may need time to overcome her obsessions, to regain a sense of safety when going out. But there's one thing she's sure of. As long as she has Max by her side, she can overcome anything. Outside the window, the gentle autumn moonlight shines on the changing trees. A gentle breeze blew, carrying with it the smell of Boston autumn, the smell of maple leaves, of damp earth, and of chilly nights. Sarah closed her eyes, letting her senses blend into the stillness of the night. She could feel the warmth of Max's body, hear his gentle breathing, and in that moment, she knew that this was the definition of peace. Being with her best friend, her brother, true hero of my life. The days after that fateful night passed in a series of mixed emotions for Sarah. Every morning when she woke up, it took her a few seconds to realize that she was still alive, that what happened was not a nightmare. Max was still lying there, next to her bed, his warm brown eyes always following her every move, as if he also understood what was going on in his owner's mind. News of the incident spread quickly in the neighborhood. The local newspaper published an article about four-legged hero saves owner from late-night attack. Sarah received countless calls and messages from friends, relatives, even neighbors she had never spoken to. Everyone wanted to know if she was okay, and of course, they wanted to know more about Max. "You're famous," Sarah said to Max with a smile one morning while reading social media comments about their story. Max just tilted his head at her, wagging his tail gently, as if he didn't understand why anyone would care about what he did. For Max, protecting Sarah is the most obvious thing in the world. But not everything goes smoothly. Sarah begins to have nightmares. In her dream, she found herself in the park again that night. But this time, Max wasn't by her side. She saw the glinting knife, heard the manic laughter of the attackers, and felt the ultimate fear of knowing that she was completely alone. On nights like that, she often woke up sobbing and drenched in sweat. And each time, Max was there. It will jump on the bed, close to Sarah's body, letting her hug it tightly and feel the warmth from its large body. Sometimes, it even gently licked the tears from her cheeks, as if to say, "I'm here, you're safe." Going to work becomes more difficult. Sarah works at a graphic design company downtown, and although the office allows employees to bring in pets, she'd never done so before. But now, the thought of being away from Max for even a few hours makes her so anxious that she can't concentrate on work. "You can bring Max to the office," Amanda, Sarah's closest co-worker, suggested, after seeing her sitting idly in front of her computer screen all morning. "Boss Tom also has a golden. He will surely understand," Sarah nodded, grateful for your understanding. The next day, when she brought Max into the office, everyone looked excited. Tom, the usually serious boss, even smiled and spent 10 minutes caressing Max. "A true hero," he said, his voice filled with admiration. "You know, Sarah, maybe we should have a policy that allows employees to bring pets to work more often. I feel like it could help improve morale significantly." From then on, Max became an indispensable part of the office. It has a separate cushion placed under Sarah's desk, and every time someone feels stressed, they will borrow Max for a while to caress and relax. Max seems to really enjoy his new role, a four-legged psychotherapist for the whole office. But the biggest test came one evening, when Sarah had to face her fears. She had avoided going out at night since the attack, only taking Max for walks during the day. But that day, a meeting lasted until 8 p.m., and when she left, the sky was dark. Sarah stood in the company parking lot, her heart pounding. The way home is only a 10-minute walk, but every shade of tree, every dark corner seems to contain a threat. Max, perhaps sensing her nervousness, pressed close to Sarah's leg and gave a soft groan of encouragement. "I can do this," Sarah told herself, tightening her grip on Max's leash. "We can do it!" Step by step, they left the parking lot. Sarah tried to keep her breathing steady, focusing on the sound of Max's claws tapping on the sidewalk. She noticed the smallest details around her, the lights from the still open shops, the laughter of passers-by, the smell of baking bread emanating from the familiar bakery. Suddenly, a man walked out from an alley. Sarah felt her body stiffen, images from the fateful night rushing back to her mind. But Max remained calm, even wagging his tail when the man, an old man walking his dog, smiled at them. "Hello," said the old man. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Sarah felt her tense muscles gradually relax. "Yes, sir," she replied, her voice shaking slightly. "This night is so beautiful." They kept going. With each step, Sarah felt a little more confident. Max was always there, steady and trustworthy, like an anchor that kept her from drifting away in the waves of her own fear. When she got home, Sarah hugged Max tightly, tears rolling down her cheeks. But this time, they weren't tears of fear or pain. They were tears of pride, of gratitude, and of hope. "We did it!" she whispered into Max's ear. Thank you for always being by my side." Max licked Sarah's face gently, his brown eyes shining with joy and unconditional love. In that moment, Sarah understood that the road ahead was long, but with Max by her side, no fear could defeat them. That night, as Sarah lay in bed, listening to Max's steady breathing, she thought about all that had happened, about how an abandoned dog became the hero of her life, about how love can turn the weakest creatures into the bravest warriors, and about how the deepest wounds are sometimes healed by hands that aren't human hands. Sarah smiled in the darkness, feeling a deep peace that she thought had been lost forever. Outside the window, the autumn moon still shines a gentle light on the sleeping city of Boston. And in this small room, a woman and her dog learn to be courageous together, not by being fearless, but by facing fear and overcoming it, day by day, day by day. Step 1. Fall gradually gives way to winter in Boston. The bright red maple leaves finally fall, giving way to the first snowflakes of the season. Sarah sat by the office window, watching the snowflakes dance in the wind, while Max slept soundly at her feet. 2 months have passed since that fateful night, and their lives have changed in ways Sarah never imagined. It all started with an email from a local nonprofit called Healing Hearts, a group that supports survivors of violent attacks. They had read about Sarah and Max's story in the newspaper and wanted to invite them to share at a group meeting. At first, Sarah hesitated. She wasn't sure she was ready to tell her story in front of strangers. But as she read more about this organization, about people trying to overcome trauma similar to hers, something inside Sarah urged her to agree. The first sharing session took place on a cold Saturday night. The small meeting room in the basement of an old church was filled with warm yellow light. About 20 people sat in a circle, their faces bearing the scars, both visible and invisible, of the trauma they had experienced. I'm not good at public speaking," Sarah began, her voice shaking. Max sat close next to her, his head resting on her knee as a silent encouragement. "But I want to share our story because maybe it will help someone." And Sarah told everything about that fateful night, about the nightmares that followed, about her fear of going out at night, and about how Max helped her get through it all. When she got to the part where she learned that courage isn't about not being afraid, but about facing it, a woman in the group started to cry. "I have a dog too," the woman said, her voice choking. "After being attacked last year, I didn't dare leave the house. Pepper, my dog, is the only reason I still open the door every day, even if it's just to take her for a walk. But I still scared." Max, as if understanding the pain in the woman's voice, stood up and walked to her side. He gently placed his head on her knee, his brown eyes filled with concern. The woman slowly stroked Max's head, and Sarah could see her shoulders gradually relax. From that first sharing session, Sarah and Max became familiar faces at Healing Hearts. Every week, they come here, listen to new stories, share small progress on their recovery journey. Max seems to have a special ability to recognize who needs comfort the most. He will quietly come to that person's side, providing warmth and safety that sometimes words cannot do. Gradually, the story of a rescue dog becoming a hero spread in the community. Local pet rescue shelters began contacting Sarah, inviting her and Max to visit and share their story. They want people to understand that abandoned dogs are not defective products. They are capable of unconditional love and loyalty that sometimes goes beyond what people imagine. One Sunday, while visiting a rescue camp, Sarah met a girl named Emma, about 12 years old. Emma suffers from anxiety after witnessing a robbery at home, and her parents are considering adopting a dog to help their daughter overcome her fear. "But I'm scared," Emma whispered, looking at the ground. "I'm afraid they won't like me." Max, with his excellent instincts, gently approached Emma. He didn't approach her right away, but sat down a few feet away from her, his head tilted to the side with a lovely, curious look. Emma looked up, and Sarah could see a small gleam in her eyes as Max wagged his tail. "You know what?" Sarah knelt down next to Emma. "When I first met Max, he was also very afraid of strangers. But sometimes, wounded hearts understand each other best. Maybe you and a certain four-legged friend here are the same." Emma was silent for a moment, then slowly extended her hand towards Max. Max gently approached, letting her touch his soft fur. A small smile, perhaps the first in months, appeared on Emma's lips. Later that day, Emma and her family decided to adopt a black Labrador named Shadow, a dog who had been abandoned and also seemed shy like Emma. Sarah watched them leave, her heart filled with hope. She knew that Emma and Shadow would learn to be brave together, just like she and Max did. On the way home, the snow began to fall more heavily. Sarah and Max walked through the park, yes, the same park from that fateful night. But this time, Sarah no longer feels scared. Instead, she felt an incredible peace. Max played in the snow, sniffing falling snowflakes and wagging his tail happily. Sarah stopped for a moment, looking up at the gray sky spewing white snowflakes. She thought about all the people they had met in the past months, the people trying to overcome their own fears, the dogs waiting for a chance to love and be loved. And she understands that sometimes the deepest wounds are the bridges that bring us together, helping us become stronger, not alone, but together. Max nuzzled Sarah's hand, pulling her back to reality. It looked at her with eyes as if to ask, "Are we going home?" Sarah nodded, smiling. They continued walking in the falling snow, leaving parallel footprints on the white snow. The footprints of a woman and her four-legged friend, together writing a story of love, courage, and hope. Spring comes to Boston in a light drizzle, bringing with it the scent of damp soil and young buds. Sarah stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her navy blazer once more, while Max sat next to him, waiting patiently in his distinctive black dog vest with red bow tie. Today is an important day, the grand opening of Hope Haven Animal Therapy Center, a project that Sarah has spent the past 6 months building. The idea for Hope Haven arose during a group meeting at Healing Hearts, when Sarah realized that there were many people like her, people struggling with psychological trauma and needing a safe space to recover. At the same time, there are countless abandoned dogs in rescue shelters, lonely souls who are also waiting for a chance to heal and love. "We won't be alone anymore," Sarah whispered, stroking Max's head while remembering the moment she decided to quit her job as a graphic designer to pursue this new dream. It was a bold decision, but somehow it felt completely right. Hope Haven is designed as a hybrid space between a pet rescue shelter and a therapy center. The first floor is home to rescued dogs, with cozy rooms instead of cold cages. The second floor has consulting rooms, where therapists will work with people who are experiencing psychological difficulties, accompanied by special four-legged friends. Sarah spent months raising funds, convincing sponsors, and finding the right staff. She was fortunate to receive support from the community, from small donations from Healing Hearts members to a large grant from a local charity. But most importantly, she found people who shared her vision. Therapists who believed in the healing power of unconditional love. Dog trainers who understood that every animal has a story and its own value. "It's time," Sarah told Max when she heard Amanda's car, now CEO of Hope Haven, pull up in front of the house. Max wagged his tail excitedly, seeming to understand the importance of today. When they arrived, a small crowd had gathered at the door of Hope Haven. Sarah recognized many familiar faces, members of Healing Hearts, staff from local shelters, and Emma and Shadow, now an inseparable couple. She's no longer the shy child Sarah met 6 months ago. Now Emma has become an active volunteer at the rescue shelter, and Shadow has become one of the first therapy dogs trained for her. Hope Haven. Sarah stood in front of the microphone, feeling her heart beat a little faster. Max sat next to him, steady as always. She took a deep breath and began her speech. 1 year ago, I was a woman afraid of the dark. I thought fear and trauma would define the rest of my life. But then I learned that sometimes the wounds run deep. The best is the door to the most wonderful things. Sarah stopped for a moment, looking down at Max. This dog not only saved my life that fateful night. Max taught me that courage is not in not knowing fear, but in facing it. That love does not need a reason to exist. It just needs a chance to be expressed. She scanned the crowd, seeing tearful eyes and sympathetic smiles. Hope Haven was born from that belief, the belief that no one has to be alone on their healing journey, that sometimes the best companions have 4 legs and a heart of gold. At Hope Haven, we don't just save dogs. We create opportunities where love and healing can flourish. Because we believe every hurting soul deserves a second chance to believe in love, to believe in yourself. When Sarah cut the ribbon, applause echoed throughout the space. Max barked happily, as if wanting to be a part of this great moment. The doors to Hope Haven opened, and the first guests entered. A warm space with soft cream walls, paintings of cats and dogs by local artists, and most importantly, the happy barking echoed from the rescue area. Throughout the morning, Sarah watched the small stories unfold. A PTSD veteran finds peace with an elderly pit bull. An autistic child smiled for the first time when a corgi licked his hand. A lonely elderly woman finds joy in knitting clothes for dogs waiting to be adopted. When dusk fell, most of the guests had left. Sarah sat in a chair in her new office, looking out the window where the last rays of the day were staining the trees yellow. Max lay at her feet, tired but happy after a long day of being an ambassador for Hope Haven. On Sarah's desk is a photo of her and Max that fateful night. A photo from a security camera that the police sent her. In the photo, Max stands proudly protecting her, like a 4-legged guardian angel. Next to it is a small sign with the words, "Every wound is a door leading to light, if we are brave enough to open it." Sarah bent down and hugged Max. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" she whispered. Max looked up at her with those familiar warm brown eyes, and in that moment, Sarah knew that this was only the beginning. There are many hearts that need to be healed, many souls that need to be loved, and they, a woman and her dog, will continue to be the guiding lights in the darkness. Outside the window, a bird sang an evening song, and in that moment, Sarah felt filled with a deep sense of gratitude. Grateful for the injuries that led her here. Being grateful for her fears helped her discover her own strength, and most of all, grateful that fate brought Max into her life, so that together they could spread the light of hope and love to the darkest places of this world.